Hamas Resistance Movement released on Saturday 4 more Israeli soldiers held captive in the Gaza Strip, whose names were revealed by the spokesman of the Al-Qassam Brigades, the armed wing of the Palestinian movement, Abu Ubaidah. In Colombia, the number of people displaced by the violence in Catatumbo region has risen to more than 40,000. In Argentina, the government led by Javier Milei seeks to eliminate the concept of femicide from the penal code. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Palestine, Israeli forces increased military checkpoints at the entrances to towns and cities to prevent thousands of displaced people from reaching their homes. Occupation forces established at least 10 new checkpoints around Nablus, installed 36 iron gates at the entrances to the cities, and closed more than 47 roads. At the same time, civilians in the town of Abud denounced that vehicles are being subjected to exhaustive inspections, which increases tensions in the area. Meanwhile, Zionist raids continue in several localities, among them Beit Lahiya and Al-Mughayir. Hamas Resistance Movement released on Saturday 4 more Israeli soldiers held captive in the Gaza Strip, whose names were revealed by the spokesman of the Al-Qassam Brigades, the armed wing of the Palestinian movement, Abu Ubaidah. According to the information provided, the Israelis to be handed over to the counterpart will be Karina Ariev, Daniel Gilboa, Naama Levi, and Liri Albas. Spokesman for the military wing of the Al-Qassam Brigade said that 200 Palestinians will be released in exchange, among them a leading resistance commander in the West Bank. The spokesman reported that the Zionist entity agreed to release up to 50 Palestinian hostages for every Israeli woman soldier released by Hamas.
We were sitting in our homes when suddenly we heard a huge, powerful explosion. We discovered that there was a car on fire, exploding and flames were coming out of it. Just a few moments before, we had heard the sound of a drone in the sky, which had been flying over the area for the last 3 days. Unfortunately, we found a car blown to smithereens with, I believe, 2 martyrs inside.
The United Nations Office for Palestine Refugees denounced more than 1.9 million Palestinians homeless in Gaza due to genocide committed by the Israeli occupation forces. UNRWA explained that reconstruction efforts could take years because the occupation destroyed more than 80% of the infrastructure in the Gaza Strip. It also noted that since the truce began, humanitarian personnel worked to begin distributing food aid and providing assistance to those most in need. But it stressed that the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who remain in the rubble cannot be overlooked. So they are also working to recover the bodies. And the UN Office for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator denounced that there are 17,000 orphan children in the Gaza Strip. Specialists presented a report on the situation in the Palestinian enclave after the Israeli ceasefire agreement against the coastal enclave came into effect. However, authorities took responsibility for reporting the precarious situation of children and young people in Gaza, as well as the absence of family members, either killed, kidnapped, or missing. And the World Food Programme intensifies efforts to provide urgent humanitarian assistance to affected population in Gaza. More than 1 million people will benefit from direct delivery of humanitarian aid over the next 3 months. After 15 months of a devastating war in the Palestinian territory, Israel and the Hamas Resistance Movement reached a truce that foresees the cease of hostilities during a first phase of 6 weeks, in which 33 Israeli hostages should be released in exchange for 1,900 Palestinian prisoners. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs revealed that Israel has destroyed about 436,000 buildings in Gaza since October 2023, 92% of the total. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed that army forces will not withdraw completely from southern Lebanon at the end of the 60-day period stipulated in the ceasefire agreement. In a statement, the office stressed that the pact provides for the gradual withdrawal of Israeli army forces over a period of 60 days, although this process could be extended beyond that time. Israel justifies its action, alleging that Lebanon has not yet fully implemented the ceasefire agreement, so the phase of gradual withdrawal will continue in coordination with the United States. The balance of this conflict so far is more than 3,800 Lebanese killed. And the Belarusian Central Electoral Commission confirmed that more than 480 international observers have been accredited for the presidential elections to be held this Sunday, January 26. Among those accredited, there are more than 800 journalists, including over 300 foreign correspondents, also 486 international observers, being the most numerous mission that of the representatives of the Community of Independent States. Likewise, the Electoral Commission detailed that 6 polling stations were set up so that nationals living abroad could vote. Now have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Colombia, the number of people displaced by violence in the Catatumbo region has risen to more than 40,000. According to data provided by the Unified Command Post, close to 20,000 people sought refuge in Cúcuta, the departmental capital north of Santander, after leaving their localities due to the armed conflict. In addition to this number, there are 10,719 Colombian refugees in Ocaña and another 10,482 in Tipú, while hundreds more sought refuge in Venezuela. On top of the thousands displaced people, the confrontation between the ELN and FARC-EP dissidents have left approximately 80 people dead, as well as kidnapped and missing people. In Cuba, the Director General for Latin America and Caribbean of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Eugenio Martinez Enrique, through his account in X, categorically denied the presence on the island of any member of the National Liberation Army of Colombia, nor of its Central Command. The diplomatic indicated that the mission of Cuba as one of the countries where they could be is an insinuation without evidence, because there is none. Martinez Enriquez added that all ELN members who traveled to Cuba in the recent past did so with authorization from the Colombian national government by means of safe conducts issued. Precisely that they came to the island for the sole and exclusive purpose of negotiating peace in Colombia, and that all ELN members left Cuba months ago at the conclusion of the 6th cycle of the peace dialogue table and the point of contact requested by the peace delegation of the Colombian government and the ELN. And the Foreign Minister of Venezuela, Iván Gil, emphasized that there will be no possible relationship with Chile as long as the current government maintains a posture of disrespect towards the Bolivarian country. Through his social media, Foreign Minister Gil expressed, "These Chilean bureaucrats and diplomats of social networks are very funny and ridiculous. They are so eager to support the empire that they forget the reality. Since August of last year, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela expelled them from the homeland of Bolivar, and we broke all relations, withdrawing also all our personnel from Chile. All this because they were dragged to the gringos. As long as the imitator government of Sebastián Piñera does not assume a dignified role of respect for our country, there will be no possible relationship." Meanwhile, in the United States, the Senate has ratified Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense in Donald Trump's administration. Vice President James David Vance cast the vote that awarded the victory to the Secretary Pete Hegseth. Hegseth's appointment was troubling because of his involvement in various events where he was accused of drunkenness on duty, inappropriate sexual behavior, and possible financial mismanagement. Hegseth suffered a pre-vote interrogation about a potential sexual assault, which he repeatedly denied. He thus pledged to foster a warrior culture in the Defense Department if it were approved. And according to White House statements, U.S. Marines arrived at the Mexican border under the pretext of supporting border protection efforts. Washington shared images of the 1st Marine Corps elements arriving at the Mexican border to supposedly assist Customs and Border Protection and allegedly protect the United States. Footage shows trucks operating in their territory a few meters away from the Mexican side, while the ground is being prepared for the landing of aircraft with armed military personnel. Pentagon announced that approximately 1,500 troops will be sent to the border as the department rushes to implement President Donald Trump's executive order demanding a crackdown on migration. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Argentina, the government led by Javier Milei seeks to eliminate the concept of femicide from the penal code. The information was released by the Argentine Minister of Justice, Mariano Cuneo Libarona, who quoted words expressed by President Javier Milei at the Davos World Economic Forum. Moreover, he alleged that feminism is a distortion of the concept of equality that only seeks privileges by pitting one half of the population against the other. Femicide is an aggravating circumstance that was incorporated into the penal code in 2021 after being unanimously approved by Congress. Meanwhile, in 2025, there were 25 femicides in 24 days, which represents one woman murdered every 20 hours. And Brazil prepares to receive the first flight of deportees from the United States after President Donald Trump signed a major set of executive orders on immigration issues. According to a federal police report, 158 immigrants, of which at least 88 are Brazilian nationals, are being deported on a flight from the United States to Belo Horizonte. This action is part of the immigration policies that the U.S. President Donald Trump has recently installed in the White House. These first anti-immigrant raids left more than 500 detained and hundreds deported. In this regard, several Latin American countries have committed through agreements to defend the human rights that protect this vulnerable population, in addition to rejecting their criminalization within the U.S. territory. A heavy rainstorm affected the Brazilian city of Sao Paulo on Friday, leaving more than 160,000 homes in the metropolitan area without power. Authorities reported 160,723 homes without electric power in the region, including 126,567 in the capital city. In addition, several subway and train stations were flooded after recording 120 liters of rain per square meter in only 2 hours, half the usual rainfall for January. Despite road and infrastructure damage, no more victims were reported. Civil Defense issued alerts on residents' cell phones warning of the risk of severe rains and recommending shelter. In Antarctica, the world's largest iceberg, known as A23A, is moving slowly on a possible collision course with the South Georgia Islands, a British territory, which is a crucial wildlife habitat. Scientists fear that if the iceberg continues on its course, it could threaten the lives of baby penguins and seals. According to British Antarctica Survey's oceanographer Andrew Mayers, it is difficult to predict the course of the iceberg, but ocean currents suggest that it would reach the shallow continental shelf around southern Georgia within 2 to 4 weeks. Furthermore, Mayers assured that what might happen next is unknown to scientists, but it is highly likely that this event will seriously affect seals and penguins, which feed and raise their babies on these islands. In the Dominican Republic, a new crisis in the power supply causes significant distress and losses to the government and its inhabitants. While the authorities are trying to solve the problem, experts assure that if necessary measures are not taken in the next month, the country will present an unbearable increase in temperature. Authorities pointed out that with the implementation of measures such as the off times, the energy deficit is set to be reduced, because in many localities the losses of energy supplies exceed 50%. Electric crisis has forced the state to allocate an annual subsidy rounding $1 billion and $100 and $500 million, a figure that is unsustainable for public finances. In Cuba, the 40th edition of the Jazz Plaza International Festival is set to bring the musical genre together with cinema through various activities. The program looks to celebrate the 65th anniversary of the Cuban Institute of Cinematography art and industry, in addition to the 4 decades of history of the musical event. For this, starting on January 27th, several movie theaters in Havana will host both film screenings and live music performances centered on the traditional Afro-American rhythm. The 2025 Jazz Plaza International Festival will take over the cities of Havana, Santiago de Cuba, and Santa Clara from January 26th to February 2nd, with the participation of more than 400 artists from 20 countries. An exhibition entitled Repatriated was opened Friday at the National Museum of Indonesia in Jakarta, displaying 800 historical objects looted during the Dutch colonization. The collection seeks to offer Indonesians a glimpse of their rich cultural heritage, which was largely lost during 4 centuries of colonial rule. The objects on display were returned to the country under a repatriation agreement signed in 2022 between Indonesia and the Netherlands. Visitors to the show have expressed their amazement at the richness of the collection, which fills in gaps of the nation's history and provides a more complete knowledge of the Indonesian past. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Join us on our social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.